Hey guys, welcome back to the table. We are finding Atoria. I am Arcadia. We like to talk about all things TTRPG here. And I have my wonderful podcast host,
The tea is hot.
Malcolm, at the table, who just burned his tongue.
So glad it wasn't my turn to talk. I'm sorry.
And unfortunately, we'll call out Bird wasn't able to be with us. Tori wasn't able to be with us today, but we have our wonderful and frequent guest with us on the show today. Jess, welcome to the table.
Hello. Thank you.
So we are going to dive into a topic that I think is actually sort of interesting. That is local game shops. We sort of turned to this as a topic as Malcolm and I were recently in a small town in Wisconsin, and we were going down the main drive, and we literally had to stop because we're like, game store! There's a game store. And it just hit us by so much surprise that there's a game store in this small little town, and we had to go check it out. And so we want to jump into game stores, and why are we shocked when we see them in small little towns, and why are we excited? So Malcolm,
Yes.
you've been gaming for quite a long time, since
Thank
the
you.
90s, I would
Yes.
say.
We wouldn't want to age me or anything.
No,
but yes,
not at
no.
all. Not at all. Talk to me about game stores back in the day.
And we had a little bit of a conversation. This, first of all, I think that they're hugely important, and hopefully we will, in this discussion and future ones, dig into that some more. I'd also like to talk to some people that maybe own or run or have experience
yeah.
there. But I'm
Hints
diverting.
of things to come.
So I love to preface. Game stores in the 90s were not gaming stores.
Right.
They weren't yet. You did not have local gaming stores back then. What you did was have your hobby shops, and these sort of evolved, I think, from old, like your train stores, your model stores.
Yeah.
And it was gaming adjacent hobbies. It was a lot
Gaming
more,
was a hobby.
right? And it was a lot more of the collectors, and the it was a lot about models, and it was a lot about things that were not TTRPG. But if you went to these places and you got past your Mustang models and your aircraft carrier put together kits and things like that, you would find, at least what I found, were the miniatures at the time, the pewter miniatures on the back wall.
Artha.
Citadel, Ralpartha, I mean, all of those on the back and in those boxes, and the images of those are what drew me back to this area. And so you still were not in a local gaming store, because you had to rifle through that stuff, go around another sub corner, and find a little shelf down below, and on there were 4 or 5 resource books for different games. And that's really how I interacted at quote unquote local gaming stores as a young person. It was not even the focus nor the financial drive of that business to have TTRPG products. It was, all right, people are kind of getting into this from the miniature side, which goes back to the wargaming origins of a lot of fantasy TTRPGs, but it was a hobby store that you had a little corner of. And that's what I remember from the 90s from my local game shop.
Yeah, I have a lot of those exact same memories. It was one of my favorite things to go to a hobby shop, because, I mean, one, just all the cool stuff that was in there, but that was where you could find the miniatures, and that's where you could find a little bit of the game. Jess, you are much newer to TTRPGs, and you are younger than Malcolm and myself. What's your first experience with a local gaming store? A couple of years ago? Is that right?
Yeah, like I'm the group magnate more than one way. Not only am I a little bit younger than you guys, but yeah, brand new to this hobby as well. Yeah, it's like my formative gaming experience growing up was video games and GameStop. So getting into the local game store was very much only the past few years, and was definitely not anywhere near as necessary for gaming for me as it was, because you guys had me create a D&D character. I didn't need the rule book so much because you already had all that stuff. I had D&D Beyond app on my phone I didn't need any of that stuff. I didn't need dice. It was more just, oh, hey, this is where all the nerd shit
And
lives.
if you look at a couple of the essential functions of the local gaming shop, you have them replaced right there. One of them is access to the game. You had a group of players. You had a group of people willing to teach you rules and give you a place to sit. Local gaming shop kind of represents that for some people. And then the other thing is that we'll get into some more technology. I'm not going to hop in the car and go down and part with my hard-earned dollars for things that I can open up an app on my phone for sometimes. It's just different that it was so vital in the 90s. Like you had to have a local gaming store in the 90s.
You couldn't get that's a really good point. Like you couldn't get the materials. Like you couldn't get online and download something. You couldn't get on Amazon and purchase something. The only way you could play the game is if someone else had the materials and you could play with them and they'd share them, or you had to find them at a game store somewhere. And it wasn't like going to say right now, you can go to Barnes and Noble and they have a little D&D section.
Yeah, my very first rule book that I got for D&D, I got the player's guide at Barnes and Noble.
Right. And you couldn't do that. You really had to dig.
I found my first D&D box set at like a thrift penny store sort of place that had like the big cigar Native American thing, and just doodads, and it was just like a junk resale store, and I found it there. Couldn't find it anywhere else at that time, and I think that's probably why a lot of people had to play with assholes back then, because
you had no one else
they
to
had
play
the
with.
books,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So Jess, I want to dig into your experience. You commented that you didn't have to, you didn't need the gaming store. Tell me about how you felt the first time walking into the gaming store. Was this something where you're like, yeah, I really don't need this? Was this something you were excited to do? Share with me.
So I did not actually need anything from that store. All of the, I didn't need the rule books. I didn't need it, because they were all available online. I already had them. So walking into a game store for the first time was not out of, I didn't have a shopping list. It felt like coming home because it was nerd haven.
I love that.
It was very clear that everybody in this store was a nerd in some way. These were, whether they were behind the counter or shopping for dice or sitting in the table area that is set up for games and tournaments and stuff, these were my people. And anyone I could have struck up a conversation with and could have found something to talk to. And that's from somebody who, I can get pretty socially awkward when I have to talk to normies. But when I talk to nerds, it's hard to get me to shut up. So I remember talking to the cashier behind the counter at the Game Preserve, and they managed to convince me to drop $50 on dice I didn't need. But these were dice
you didn't need
Shout
them.
out sales tactics.
But I mean, you need them.
Yeah. To be fair,
they're pretty math rocks.
They were pretty, and they had dragons on them, and I am very glad I own them. It was not a hard sell. Let's be honest. I was eyeing them already anyway.
The arm is recovered from being twisted. I assume we're back to.
They did not have to twist my arm very hard at all. It was the lightest suggestion had me buying those dice because dice with dragons. Come on, but I still enjoyed exploring the store and looking at all the stuff. It was more just I didn't buy anything other than the dice, but it still felt more like a place I could go to meet people who were in my community.
So
let me ask you this, because you named the store, and just really quick, I described what that store was like in the early 90s. I've been there since, but when you walked in, there was no question about what that store was there for, what they were selling, and what their bread and butter was. It was no longer this niche element of hobbydom back in the corner of a general hobby store, game store now.
Yeah. Oh,
TTRPGs, board games, games.
Yeah, the rule books for a variety of different games were right there up front. There were dice right on the counter. Like the nicer dice had a like they were like under glass.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
like a jewelry store
Sure.
would put the diamond rings. It's like that's where these nice dice
That's
were.
how they deter me from taking shit.
There were miniatures. There were cards of the spell. The spell
Yeah,
cards,
the spell cards and all that,
There
yep.
was all kinds of stuff. Like, it wasn't just D&D. It was, but then
All the RPG games
Am I
and
rem-
board games.
yeah, there were definitely board games. There were. Am I remembering rightly that there were like Magic the Gathering cards too?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, so there's just like
Definitely.
a variety of just nerd culture stuff, but any of the stuff that requires like. It's all of the stuff for doing it in person, not digitally.
Well, and one of the things I really liked that, Jess, you touched on, and I think Malcolm also hit on it a little bit, is that the layout, the purpose of the store has changed. And you mentioned people sitting at table gaming, and also you mentioned like this feeling of community, and I think those are two very significant changes from what we had as kids back in the 90s. You know, not to say that when you went in and found stuff that there wasn't some sense of community, but the majority of people in there weren't necessarily in there for D&D stuff. And now it's not necessarily D&D, but it's gaming. And it's those tables and where people are gaming and all of that. The game store has sort of become almost a community center. Tell me about this. Like, let's dive into this a little bit. What do you think?
So I haven't actually ever played anything at one of these. I imagine it's a really great place to, like if you don't, my intro to D&D and other TTRPGs was with a preset group that just kind of adopted me. So I didn't really need the game store for the purpose of getting that group together. But like just the fact that it exists at all is amazing. And like just walking into the store, I didn't even have to talk to people. And it's just like this kind of sense of, I belong here. These are my people.
What's going on here?
And I get the same sense in GameStop.
Right.
Just because this is a store meant for people like me. So anyone who's in here is either part of this group that I'm a part of, even if we're all introverts and don't talk to each other, or they're shopping for somebody who is. And yeah, so, but the fact that so many of these stores have those tables for things like tournaments, like Magic the Gathering tournaments, and I imagine they're a place to, it'd be a really good place to try out a new game, like if we ever wanted to try a new one but we didn't own it.
Yeah. Malcolm, you were talking about that before, about how like the game shop has become a place where you can, maybe we have all of our supplies digitally, but that's a place where we can try things out.
And I go back to a previous episode that was kind of along the same lines of this, where they're in the UK in certain places where the pubs are turning into these places.
Yeah.
You don't have the space usually for these sorts of things. So you give people that as a value add for doing business with you. And it's also for these local game shop owners a different stream of revenue. It's a different way to keep their business going. But going back to the community hub thing, it is so different than it used to be, where you had to look for the proverbial note up on a pinboard at the post office or the library or the hobby shop where somebody was looking for players for a game. This centralizes your community. This gives them a hub point. It also gives them a sense of belonging, where people are not out trying to just find each other in chat rooms and Discord servers. If I go to this address on this date, there is an event. So I think a lot of it is the community coordination. If you read anything about venturing out to be a local game shop owner, they say part one of business model community. Even like do pop-ups and just gauge interest and get people close, because that's how you sustain in the land of almost zero margins, is you show community value by hosting and having a safe place where kids can go and do things, by having people come in to run games and providing that resource of, hey, you've got 5 people that want to play and nobody wants to be behind the screen, because GM fatigue is real in our society right now. We've got it. We'll provide somebody to run game for you. We'll make access. And like Jess was talking about, you walk in and go, hey, that looks like a pretty freaking cool game, but I'm not sure if I want to part with $60 or $70 for it. A lot of those guys will open up game or put you next in a game adjacent to it to hey, run sort of this same similar system, and you kind of get to try and interact with products before committing to them.
Yeah, I love that opportunity that we did not have as kids. So I would like to dive into, Malcolm started sort of hitting on it. He's segueing me perfectly here. Part of the reason we were so excited about seeing this store, I will throw it out there. We were in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, and it's called the Boardwalk.
The Boardwalk.
So if you're up in that area, check out the Boardwalk. But we were so excited to see it because, we remember the fact that we had the hobby stores that sort of morphed into the gaming stores, and then they just started disappearing. And so if you found one that held could stay open and stay in the community, it sort of seemed huge. You just stopped finding them. And I'm sure there's lots of business reasons behind why all of that happened. But so after our break, I'd like to take a little break. But when we come back, let's talk about that. What happened to game stores there for a while, and why are they making a comeback? Because really, we're starting to see them in the communities again.
I love it.
So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about our game shops.
When you sit down at the table, open the books, and spill out the dice, you're looking for an epic adventure. Tabletop role-playing is more popular than ever, and every day new players join our great hobby. My name is Steve Kellums, and I'm the host of the Epic Adventure Podcast. I'm just a fan with a radio voice, but joining me on this quest will be Mike Howlett, the co-founder of Oddfish Games, a great independent game company, and Christina Stiso, a PhD student studying game-based learning. Together, we will discuss all things tabletop gaming, from character creation to world building to setting and pacing. We will give you tips and tricks to make your games, well, epic. Like and subscribe to the Epic Adventure Podcast today.
This episode of Finding Atoria is brought to you by Wordleaf Media. The Finding Atoria podcast is looking for guests for our upcoming episodes. Are you or someone you know passionate about the TTRPG community and have a story to share? If so, contact us on our socials or reach out at wordleafmedia.com/findingatoria. And now back to your program.
Hey guys, welcome back to the table after our break. You are listening to Finding Atoria, and we are talking today about local game shops, the places we love to visit and probably spend money that we shouldn't. But we were just talking about how they've evolved over the years and how for a while there we remember them disappearing. Why? Why did they disappear?
Same reason why you couldn't walk into a Walden Books for a long time, or
Walden Books.
I loved Walden.
I know, I miss Walden Books.
The digital revolution did everything that it was supposed to do to written media. And
talk to me about that.
Look at different companies that were making books at the time for resources. I always go back to World of Darkness because it is a perfect example of how digital interruption just kind of took down a company. We were online.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing things in a digital world, and even early chat rooms were turned into RPGs and games where people could just go back and forth. So the cost to do that and to maintain the overhead of that just became ridiculous when you didn't have enough people walking through the doors because they were getting their information online or being able to purchase things online.
Well, and I think, I'm going to age myself a ton, back to early days of the internet when piracy was just sort of
part of the game. Yeah.
Whether music or media or whatever,
Yep.
We were coming out of a world where things weren't as available online. So, say I'll use media or music as an example. You owned a CD, you recorded it onto a tape, you shared it with somebody. People didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. When, digital assets became a thing, people kept doing the same thing, not thinking about the impact there. And so same thing with PDF versions of rule books or game modules or, any of that.
And I think you're dealing with a business and a business model that has always been a low margin business model.
Mm-hmm.
You're not able to suffer industry-wide setback like that and not have to change your business model.
Right.
So I think that the reason they went away was a reason a lot of businesses went away at that point in time.
So, you were talking earlier about how basically the TTRPG section was this like little tiny secret corner.
At first it was, yeah.
And now that was big enough to the internet got rid of the store altogether. Like what happened with all the other stuff that the store was like, selling model trains and stuff? What happened to that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
It's a very good question. I know that they weren't making their bread and butter off of that, but I think your foot traffic just kind of went away. I think that local gaming stores usually start with the disadvantage of an upside down rent. You're paying more to be visible in a community that may not be supporting you. And I think that it was just a low enough margin thing that not only the TTRPG section of a hobby store would be impacted with those technological changes, with that access to information in different spaces, that access to commerce on a digital level. I think that it impacted more than just that segment of their business.
That was my thought too, is that in these, you don't really see these hobby stores anymore. And I think a couple of things. One, Amazon.
Yeah.
You can get everything from
eBay.
Amazon.
And
Amazon, I think,
collectibles.
took out a lot of small local stores.
Amazon took out Borders, didn't it?
Right, exactly. And then you also have the younger generations aren't doing model trains. They're playing video games.
And they're not, and that's the other thing too, is that you look at the flood of games that went digital.
Right.
TTRPGs, everything got its own video game treatment, got its own online MMORPG, freaking thing.
MMORPG.
I know.
You say that a few times.
MMORPG.
I always get to the end of it. I'm like, I'm going to leave out a letter and I'll get a phone call.
Or a judgy look from
judgy
me
look across the table, which is much worse than the phone call.
And I remember the sadness I felt being in a community when those stores closed.
There was one at the place where I was at school at, and this was probably around 3.5 for D&D in timeline.
Yeah.
And it was like the upstairs back bedroom of some office built, like that you had to go through 2 other businesses to get in there. And it was just one dude flipping over magic cards with a friend. Really didn't care if you bought shit. Really didn't have inventory because who's going to be, you think Wizards of the Coast is making sure that he's fully stocked for the new release. You know what I mean? And I just kind of felt the death of it. Mm-hmm. That if I wanted to hang anymore, I would need to be a World of Warcraft player. I would need to be online and doing this. And that wasn't my game. So I remember that sadness and that it was just kind of over. Like so many other things, it made sense. I wasn't confused about it. It made sense. Like, it's digital age, baby. We're not there anymore. But it was kind of sad. And it was when I spent some time away from the game.
So, but the flip side of this is that in the last decade or so,
We're back, baby.
they're reopening. You're finding them not just like, I will say, I think it's been mentioned, we live in the Indianapolis area. There is our local game store that never closed. I will say I moved away and I came back, and the fact that they were still open, I was doing some sort of happy jig. But in the communities that are smaller, or even in like, say, that larger community, in Indy, there was basically that one shop, and now there's like 4 or 5 that I can get to within a handful of minutes.
That's the other thing is there's a price to be paid for popularity in your industry.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have competition. Right.
But so I guess I want to delve into that. Is why are they coming back? Jess, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's like I got into this whole game thing from the video game angle. Like, I grew up playing video games, and I've been playing World of Warcraft since 2004 when it came out in the first place. Like, I'm one of their original players. So I've been seeing video game stuff forever, because that was basically like right around the time that I was growing up. So I just kind of grew up with that, and it's only been recently that I've actually, and granted I wasn't really looking for TTRPG type game stores before that, but I got into Magic the Gathering in college, and then I remember there not really being a lot for that. I remember there being, like I got some cards from a tournament. I could order some card packs online, but like I don't remember looking for a game store. It didn't really occur to me, so I don't know if they weren't there or they were there and I just didn't notice them because
could have been a lack of visibility. Yeah,
Right.
Maybe they weren't promoting well.
yeah, because I was in college. I didn't really leave campus that much.
Gotcha.
Sure.
I didn't have a car for most of my time there. I didn't. Yeah, so it's only been recently that like all of a sudden I've been noticing them everywhere, and it's hard to tell if it was just because I wasn't looking or if they genuinely are new. But like I went to Scandinavia with my husband a few years ago, and you couldn't blink for game stores. They were everywhere. Like every street corner had a game store with it was board games, TTRPGs, Magic the Gathering cards. And like I don't know why it's so popular in Scandinavia or if it's everywhere. That was the first time I noticed it because that might have been like 5 years ago.
You've said the name, I think, 3 times now and referenced it, and I think that it's a game that's almost had a parallel re-rise with probably D&D, to be honest, but TTRPGs as well, is Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
There's such a new fervor behind that, and I won't say new, it's always been popular, but it's almost had its same resurgence of popularity and interest, and has caught the next generation a little bit. So you're seeing a lot of the stores that I've seen, at least here in the States, if not anchored in that business and that promoting that, it's a big part of what they do and who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's a big aspect to that in the resurgence of the store is that embracing of not just say the TTRPG or maybe some of these other hobbies that we talked about in the early runs, but it's board games. It's,
what are people playing?
Other tabletop games like Magic, Pokemon, different things like that. And you don't want to see the look Malcolm just gave me for mentioning that one.
My 8-year-old nephew loves Pokemon Go.
Yeah. I mean, my son collected Pokemon cards
And how many years ago was it when they had the app?
Right.
And people were walking off bridges trying to collect a Shitsumon from the river?
Exactly. But, I think it's an embracing of game playing.
Right.
And not virtual game playing, because that's a different store. That's a GameStop or, whatever. But this embrace of playing a game in person with people, building that community. I think that's where things have come back, is we talked about offline, these tiny margins, that like game stores, you just can't afford to be a game store owner, especially if most of them are local independent, they're small businesses. They aren't massive chains. And I don't know, you'd done some research on this, Malcolm, the margins for this kind of stuff.
And I certainly don't have any hard figures to reference, but it was, I guess, not all unexpectedly slim.
Right.
Most recently, printing costs, and if you talk to our indie game creator friends, you're going to hear that just getting things printed and shipped to you is knocking most people out of the business.
Right.
I'll go down a small rabbit hole and something that we may choose to talk about in greater depth, but that's why you're seeing Kickstarter for even the big boys.
Right.
Because you cannot logistically fund a game drop without doing that crowdfunding first and having some semblance of an idea, because the upfront cost is huge. And same thing for the game store owners. These local game store owners have to put huge amounts into initial inventory stock with no guarantee of sales. It's about as prospective as possible. And then once again, you're renting. You are trying to be downtown near foot traffic and easily accessible, so you have the highest one of the higher points of rent in any community. So you see them need to supplement income, and they're doing it with these play areas. They're doing it with memberships and tournaments and bringing people in and leveraging their community to have I guess, a big enough margin to offset, because they're not making a whole lot when you and I walk in there and buy our manual off the shelf.
Right. Because you can get it from the, I'm sure they get bulk purchase discount or something, but you can get online at the, actual publisher and buy stuff from them direct, and you're paying the same prices.
And you just mentioned the internet a little bit ago. How long until you find your entire book down on a PDF somewhere that you can get, it's tough.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned leveraging community, and I want to pull back to what Jess was talking about, about how the first time you entered a game store, that was really what you took away, was this feeling of community. It wasn't so much about needing to go in and get your hands on actual materials. This was a place of community. What do you think about the fact that is, being leveraged as a way for these game shops to stay in existence?
I think that, sorry. I mean, realistically, I think that's like one of the most important things at this point. Mm-hmm. Not just to keep them in business, but that's the only thing that can't really be replaced by a digital version. I mean, you can have online communities, but it doesn't feel the same as being in person. So I remember, I guess college was kind of formative for me in terms of gaming, because that was when I got into MMORPGs, and it was when I kind of realized that games aren't just for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because, I mean, I played games as a kid, and I did have video games that I played throughout high school, but I went to visit a friend who was studying abroad in Germany, and what she and her flatmates did on that Friday night was they had a party. Mm-hmm. And that party was 1 beer each and Sigla von Catan. Settlers of Catan.
I was going to say, I heard Catan.
Yeah. My first introduction to this game was in German. So, sorry. That's
so you get
what it's called in my head.
It's a 1 drink maximum, and you're playing Settlers of Catan, and that's the party.
Yeah, that was the party. It was great. So I was like, okay, we're playing a game. And this is clearly not a child's game. This is not Candyland or whatever. And I mean,
although my kids love it.
If you want to play Candyland as an adult, more power to you. It's still fun.
But it is a 3 drink minimum to play Candyland. Like you've got to drink a lot more as an adult. So
it was more just like, because I feel like there used to be this attitude of games are for kids. You stop playing games as an adult. You grow up.
It is part of what you shed with your childhood.
Right.
And as you enter maturity, no longer do I do these childish things.
Right. Like it's like you grow up and be an adult now, but then like right as I was entering adulthood is when there was this massive change of why would we stop playing games just because we're in our 20s or older? Why would we do that? These are fun.
Because they got to the psychology of it and started figuring out
everybody needs play. It's not
go.
Just for children. Everybody needs that as just part of being a healthy person. So I got to become an adult as that was becoming more socially acceptable. And that meant, it's like, all right, I can continue playing video games. I can play these board games. And so, getting into TTRPGs was it was just the next logical step. And I never had to feel any kind of shame about playing as an adult, because it's just part of being a human. Mm-hmm. And so that, getting back to the original question I was asked about the community aspect of it, it's like, there's a lot of just like community spaces that I feel have kind of gone away over the years.
Sure. And
so much as we talk about how like, oh, well, kids never want to go outside anymore. It's like, well, yeah, it's because we as a society have kind of eliminated all the places where you can hang out. Like, malls don't want groups of teenagers there anymore. It's like, well, when I was in middle school and high school, we went to the mall. That's what we did. Well, you can't do that anymore because they don't want people under 18 unsupervised there anymore.
Same thing with parks.
They kick you out of the park.
Spaces.
So what do? You talk to your friends online. It's like,
so you need a place for community.
Yeah, most teenagers would probably love to hang out with their friends in person, but they can't. So because there's no place for them to go. So
pubs in the UK.
Right, exactly.
Right. So like, what's needed is this space to do it in person, because yeah, you can do it online, but I feel like at heart, people want to get together in person when they can.
Yeah.
Digitally meeting via Discord or something is a good backup if you can't. But I mean, I have 2 TTRPG tables. One of them is exclusively digital and one of them is exclusively in person. And which am I enjoying more?
That probably provides a very clear contrast.
The in-person one is so much better.
Yeah. So supporting that community. Yeah. So I want to throw one last question out. And that is, how do we've sort of at least touched on the fact that we believe having this community and doing these things is important. What do we as players, what do we as people who want these stores to continue, how do we support them? Jess, what are your thoughts?
Since we were talking about the very low profit margins, my first thought is do some research and figure out where do they actually make the most money. Because if I spend $50 on those dice, if they only see 50 cents of that,
is it worth
then
it?
that's not necessarily
so
the
know
thing.
the business better.
That's not
be in tune
necessarily
with,
where I need to be putting my money. Like if I'm going to spend $50 at this game store, what is going to benefit them the most?
What moves the needle that helps the business? And you're right, not all dollars are equal dollars when they're spent at a business.
Yeah.
Malcolm, what do you think for supporting our local game stores?
I think especially for people like us, you're a responsible consumer. You know where you're spending your money, and you step aside from convenience to make sure it's funneled to the places you want to see it go. So you shop there.
Yeah, so there's benefit if you're going to get a hard copy of something. There's benefit in going to your local game store instead of to Amazon, even if it's going to cost me $2 more.
And especially if it's more of what you want to see, because if they move units, they get better shit. They're going to have suppliers, bring in more options. The other thing, though, I think is volunteer time. If you know how to run a game and you're willing to run a game, once again, all of these places you are seeing are opening up with table space.
Right.
Because once again, they're leveraging it for their business model. What they have a deficit of is the same thing that the community at large has a deficit of, which is people who are knowledgeable and willing to run a game, take responsibility for a table, commit to a schedule, and allow that local gaming store to be of more community value by helping out there.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap us up just with a call out, I guess, to those who are listening. At Finding Atoria, we really want to help bring people to the table, building those communities, having those gaming opportunities at those local gaming stores is really important. We want to dive into this a little bit more. If you are a local game store owner or connected to a local game store shop in some way, you see the benefits in your community, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to hear more about your experiences and how the community can help support and build up these areas so that we can all keep playing at the table. Jess.
I don't know, even if I don't go inside, just seeing the game store's existence at all is huge because it reminds me, because so many nerd habits or nerd hobbies are kind of
habitats.
They're kind of
crikey.
In some cases, they're lonely.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're the only one. And so just seeing that there's a store that sells your shit and that there's enough of a demand to justify the existence of this store immediately makes you feel like you're not alone. I'm not the only nerd out here. They may not be anywhere near me right now, but the fact that store exists at all means that I am not alone.
Yeah. Malcolm? Final thoughts?
I'm not alone. No, I think that it is something that is seeing a resurgence for a lot of reasons, all of them good. And to me, it's the better way to do business in our community. And it's what I want to see more of. I've always talked about my love of non-traditional gaming spaces. Local gaming store really isn't that, but it's still a really good gaming space. And I think that, yeah, I think I want to talk more about it, and I do want to hear from other people, but those are my final thoughts on it.
All right, guys, you've been listening to Finding Atoria. We are so glad that you joined us at the table today. Support your local gaming stores. We want more of them. We want to keep them in business. We want to see them around and know that we're part of a community. So,
community that goes to Patreon.
Exactly. You can find us at www.wordleafmedia.com/findingatoria. You can click the button there and support us on Patreon. You can also find us on Facebook and Insta and YouTube. We're very excited about that.
Believe it or not, that was not a sound effect from the board. That was wild.
All right. Thank you for listening. We love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
This episode of Finding Atoria is brought to you by Wordleaf Media. Find us at wordleafmedia.com/findingatoria if you or anyone you know has stories or other good things to say about TTRPGs. Get a hold of us. You can find us on all the social medias.
This episode of Finding Atoria is brought to you by Wordleaf Media. Are you interested in sharing stories of your favorite TTRPG experiences? If so, reach out at www.wordleafmedia.com/contact us on our socials, or you can now leave a comment on your favorite Finding Atoria episode at our Wordleaf Media YouTube channel.